And now if you'll stand for the reading, the gospel reading. Today's reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 1 to 13. The parable of the 10 bridesmaids. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. I have a problem with procrastination. It's a real problem, one that I've dealt with since I was a little girl. I remember in high school, when I was supposed to be listening to the teacher speaking, I would be doing my homework for the next class. I've always lived my life by deadlines, pushing it right up to the last minute. I love deadlines. Deadlines mean I'll get something done. Otherwise, I'll just add it to my ever-increasing list of projects. I've learned to work with this tendency in myself to some extent and impose my own deadlines, which don't really work as well as externally imposed deadlines, but it helps somewhat. Procrastination is a bad habit, but I haven't been put in a situation where I couldn't meet my deadlines and everything usually works out. So that gives me very little incentive for change. But for me, it adds stress to my life that I don't need. I'm constantly behind and worried about completing my things on time. Stress, according to the medical professionals, is a killer. So by adding unnecessary stress to my life, I may be compromising my health or shortening my lifespan. You'd think that would spur me on to do something about it, but I'm not very old, so I'll think about that later. Seriously though, I don't think I'm the only person with this problem, so I'm going to talk a little bit about procrastination, and then we'll see about what Jesus has to say in today's lesson. One of the problems of living deadline to deadline is the lack of time to chart your course through life. If we consider life as a series of rivers, and we are traveling these rivers in a boat, we definitely want to have a map and some way to steer the boat. The map is useful so we know where we're going. We can look at the map and chart our course so we'll arrive at our destination without too much wandering. So in life, we need to know where we're going. What is our goal? We do not want to leave our destination up to the whims of the world. I hope you've considered your ultimate destination. I hope you have set goals for your life. The only other thing besides a map we need is some way to steer the boat. If you want to go with the current but not end up ashore, you'll need a rudder. A rudder is useful for general steering and will get you in the right direction. In life, you might call your rudder your guiding principles. As Christians, we would consider the teachings of Jesus to be our guiding force, especially the greatest commandment to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Maybe there are other principles in your life that you live by as well, like to be a good steward of the earth, or some other priority that you have deemed important. The rudder is great for general direction, but to move to a specific location or travel upstream, you'll need some oars. 2 is better than 1 in my experience, but 1 is better than none. The ors would be like smaller decisions in life, like who are your friends, what kind of job do you have, what organizations do you support, where do you shop, etc. All decisions in life are important. They are your decisions. Don't let someone else make them for you. And don't just go with the default answer. So as we go through life, it's important to check the map and make sure we're still on course to meet the goals that we've set. We're using our oars to steer in the right direction. And that's one reason I love New Year's resolutions. I think it's a great time to check in with your goals and realign your course as needed. I set smaller goals through the year to make progress towards my ultimate goal. Now, my ultimate goal is to be a good person and to make the best use of my time here on earth. So my goal lines up perfectly with Christianity. And this new role as a pastor affords me time to learn more about Jesus and God and to process my thoughts while I write sermons. So it's definitely something I will continue. But as you reevaluate on a yearly basis, whether at New Year's or on your birthday, which is another good time, you may need to discard some of your activities that don't help you meet your goals. Now, this is hard for me because I have a hard time saying no. But saying no is just as important as saying yes. It's a way of choosing, of using your oars to chart your own course and not just relying on the changing winds of society to get you there. So now that we've talked a little bit about how procrastination can rob you of agency in your life, let's look at what Jesus is saying in today's parable of the 10 bridesmaids. Remember, this continues the final discourse of Jesus before his crucifixion. He tells this parable and 2 others that we'll hear later on to illustrate the points that he made in the woes that we talked about last week. The 10 bridesmaids are waiting for the bridegroom. We're told there are 5 wise bridesmaids and 5 foolish ones. Now, when I read this parable, the first thing that strikes me is that the foolish bridesmaids were procrastinators. They had enough oil for their lamps to last a few hours, so they thought to themselves, I'll worry about it when my oil runs out. Big mistake. Okay, first of all, things don't usually happen the way that you expect them to. And in this case, the bridegroom was late. Their lamps were burning while they waited, and they ran out of oil. So when the bridegroom did come, they were out of oil, and they had to go find some in the middle of the night. Where are they going to get oil in the middle of the night? Obviously, they didn't think this through. So they didn't plan, and they weren't prepared for anything that might go wrong. So while they were off procuring more oil, the bridegroom came, and the wedding festivities began without them. And not only that, the door was shut, and they were barred from the wedding, all because they were unprepared. They let their procrastination get the best of them, and this time it didn't work out in their favor. So now, let's dig a little deeper and see what they missed. As a parable, this story has multiple layers of meaning. The first layer we just talked about, we can learn some valuable life lessons. Be like the wise bridesmaids and carry an extra flask of oil with you. Be prepared for the changes that life may throw at you. This could mean be prepared for any possibility or remain flexible in your approach towards life. Either way, they're valuable lessons, but as Christians, we might want to know, what is Jesus trying to tell us about our faith in God in this parable? The 10 bridesmaids are waiting for the bridegroom. We're told there are 5 wise ones and 5 foolish ones. In several places in the New Testament, the church is referred to as the bride, and Jesus is the bridegroom. So who are the bridesmaids? My guess is the bridesmaids refer to the Jewish people who are listening to Jesus speak and deciding whether to be wise or foolish. That is, whether to believe Jesus is the Messiah or not. The bride is not mentioned in this parable. The bridesmaids are waiting for the bridegroom. The Jews are waiting for the Messiah, as they have done for centuries. But when the Messiah appears before them, half are prepared and half are not. Half recognize him and half persecute him. Half believe in him and half do not. Of course, Jesus is the Messiah, but the first century Jews are unsure about that. Jesus tells this parable to warn them that they need to wake up and recognize the Son of God standing in their midst. Now, there's yet another level to this story. You may remember that the final discourse is also called the judgment discourse. And that's because Jesus is talking about the final judgment, when he will come again to judge the living and the dead, as we state in the Apostles' Creed. In this case, we can interpret the bridesmaids as those who are waiting for Jesus to come again. Now, what seems to be important here is to be prepared. The first Christians believed that the second coming was imminent. Jesus is quoted as saying, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." And so they expect this to occur in a short amount of time, within their lifetimes. It's interesting that this parable takes place in the middle of the night. And that reminds me of what Jesus states earlier in this speech in chapter 24. "But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would have not let his house be broken into. Therefore, you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." I think this parable teaches us to be prepared for Jesus to come at any time. He will not come at a time when we are expecting him. He will come when we least expect it, and we need to be prepared. Like the wise bridesmaids, we need to carry an extra flask of oil. We should not procrastinate getting back on course. Jesus may come tomorrow or 1,000 years hence, and we'll never know, because as he said to his disciples, concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, not even the Son, but the Father only. So while procrastination on some things like writing sermons or returning phone calls is probably okay, but there's no time for procrastination when it concerns your eternal soul, because the hour of judgment is unknown. Make sure you chart your course on the river of life. Make sure you use your rudder and your oars to steer your course towards eternity. As Joshua says, choose this day whom you will serve. Choose to serve the eternal God who loves us so much he wants to spend eternity with us here on earth. Choose to be the people of God. Make wise decisions in life. Choose your friends and activities carefully. Say no if you need to. Don't miss out like the foolish bridesmaids. Address your troubles today. Correct your course now. Don't put it off till tomorrow, for it may be too late. If your guiding principle is Jesus, and you live every day like Jesus is coming tomorrow, you will be assured of a seat at the heavenly wedding banquet, where the bride and the bridegroom are reunited for eternity. God will dwell once more with humanity, and the earth will be renewed. We'll have new bodies, not these mortal bodies imbued with pain and sadness and death, but eternal bodies that are immortal and forever join the angels in worship of the Lord. Joy and peace and love will be ours forever. Let us pray. Eternal God, God of love, we are waiting for you to come to earth again, to be with us. We are preparing ourselves for your presence. We have faith. We have decided to be your people and to use your teachings to guide our actions. Help us to stay on course, because sometimes we get tired of waiting. Sometimes we get distracted by other things and wander away from the path that leads to you. Help us to prune away unnecessary activities, especially those that are damaging to our bodies, minds, and spirits. Help us learn to say no to those things so that we can say yes to you. For your word is eternal, and your glory will last forever, and we want to be a part of that. Amen.